Son goes undercover as janitor at his dad's company. What he sees next is shocking. Adam Sullivan stared at his reflection in the bathroom mirror, barely recognizing himself. The designer clothes and perfectly styled hair were gone. In their place stood a man in a janitor's uniform, with a baseball cap pulled low over his eyes and stubble on his face. "Jake Dawson," he said to his reflection, testing out his new identity. "Just Jake." For the last 10 years, ever since graduating from business school with honors, his father had kept him at arm's length from Sullivan Enterprises, the multi-billion-dollar tech conglomerate that Robert Sullivan had built from nothing. Despite Adam's qualifications, his father constantly relegated him to meaningless projects or suggested he find his own path. Their last argument still burned in Adam's mind. "You're not ready, Adam," his father had said, not even looking up from his desk. "Business isn't just about fancy degrees. It's about understanding people, recognizing threats, building trust. You need more life experience." "I'm 30 years old, Dad. How much more experience do I need? You started this company at 22. Robert Sullivan had finally looked up, his steel-gray eyes meeting Adam's. "I started with nothing. You've had everything. That's the difference." The words had cut deep, feeding a doubt that had plagued Adam his entire life, that he was nothing more than a privileged heir, unworthy of the Sullivan name. But today, that would change. If his father wouldn't let him in through the front door, he'd enter through the back, literally. Sullivan Enterprises had just contracted with a new janitorial service, and thanks to some creative hacking and a substantial bribe, Adam Sullivan had disappeared and Jake Dawson had appeared on the employee roster. "Just 3 months," he whispered to himself as he grabbed his fake ID and headed out the door of his modest rental apartment. 3 months to learn everything about the company from the ground up. Then he'll have to take me seriously. 2 weeks into his undercover mission, Adam was regretting his decision. His hands were calloused from mopping floors, his back ached from emptying endless trash cans, and the chemical smell of cleaning products seemed permanently embedded in his nostrils. But worse than the physical discomfort was what he was hearing. "Another department cut," whispered Gloria, one of the senior janitors, as they worked the executive floor after hours. "Third one this quarter. Makes no sense, company stock is at an all-time high." "It's Carson," Jorge, another janitor, replied. "He's got the old man wrapped around his finger." Adam's ears perked up at the mention of Victor Carson, his father's CFO and right-hand man for the past 5 years. "What do you mean?" Adam asked, trying to sound casual. Gloria looked around nervously. "Carson's been making all these changes. Cost-cutting measures, he calls them. But people who've been loyal to Mr. Sullivan for decades are getting pushed out." Jorge nodded. "And our annual bonuses? Gone. Carson says the company can't afford them this year. Meanwhile, he's driving a new Bentley." Adam frowned. Sullivan Enterprises had posted record profits last quarter. There was no reason for cutbacks or missing bonuses. The next day, Adam was assigned to clean the main conference room after the quarterly board meeting. As he pushed his cart in, he found the room still occupied by Carson and James Peterson, a newer board member. "Jake," Carson said sharply, noticing him. "Come back later." Adam ducked his head submissively. "Sorry, sir. They told me to clean now." Carson sighed irritably. "Fine. Just be quick and quiet." Adam kept his head down as he emptied trash cans, but his ears were wide open. "The projection numbers concern me, Victor," Peterson was saying. "These forecasts seem optimistic." Carson's laugh was smooth as silk. James, this is how Robert operates. Bold moves that seem risky but pay off. Trust me, the Sullivan microprocessing acquisition will double our market share. But the price tag is an investment in our future." Carson cut in firmly. "The vote is tomorrow. I need you with us on this." Peterson hesitated. "I'll need to review the numbers again." Carson's voice dropped. "Remember our discussion about your position, James. As chairman of the compensation committee, your support on this would be appreciated." Very appreciated. The threat was subtle but unmistakable. After they left, Adam slipped into his father's empty office. He scanned the desk, looking for information about the acquisition. Finding nothing, he moved to his father's computer. It was locked, but Adam knew his father's password patterns. After 3 attempts, he was in. 15 minutes of searching revealed the truth. Sullivan Microprocessing was a nearly bankrupt company with outdated technology and massive debt. Acquiring it made absolutely no business sense. Yet Carson was pushing for it aggressively. 2 days later, Adam was emptying Carson's trash when he noticed shredded documents with his father's signature. On impulse, he pocketed some of the shredded remains. That night, Adam painstakingly pieced together the fragments. What emerged was shocking: financial reports that were drastically different from the ones presented to the board. The real numbers showed Sullivan Enterprises was being systematically drained through questionable transactions, all approved based on Carson's recommendations. The Sullivan Microprocessing acquisition wasn't about market share, it was about creating a massive cash flow that could be diverted elsewhere. Adam paced his small apartment, torn between his original mission and this new threat. His father might be stubborn, but he was no fool. Why would he trust Carson so completely? The answer hit him: his mother's death 5 years ago. Robert had withdrawn after losing his wife, delegating more responsibility to Carson. Carson had stepped in right when Robert was most vulnerable. Adam's phone buzzed with a text from Gloria. "Executive meeting tomorrow. Need extra hands cleaning up after. You in?" Adam texted back immediately. "Count me in." Now he had a new mission, one with much higher stakes. "I'm coming, Dad," he whispered. "Whether you want my help or not." The executive meeting ran late into the evening. Adam waited patiently in the hallway with his cleaning cart, watching board members file out one by one. Most walked past him without a glance. The invisible service worker, exactly as he'd planned. His father was the last to leave, looking exhausted as he headed toward the elevator with Carson at his side. "Robert, you should head home. I'll finish reviewing these projections," Carson said, his hand on Robert's shoulder with casual familiarity. "Thanks, Victor. Don't know what I'd do without you these days," Robert replied with a tired smile before disappearing into the elevator. Adam felt a pang watching his father. He looked older somehow, worn down in a way Adam hadn't noticed before. Once the floor was empty, Adam slipped into the boardroom and began cleaning, carefully examining discarded papers and notes. On a crumpled page, he found handwritten calculations that didn't match any of the figures presented in the meeting's digital slide deck. As he was photographing these with his phone, he heard voices approaching. Adam quickly moved to empty the trash bin as Carson and Lawrence Bennett, the company's legal counsel, entered mid-conversation. "Not sustainable, Victor," Bennett was saying. "The board is going to ask questions eventually." "Let me worry about the board," Carson replied coolly. "Half of them are too old to understand technology investments, and the other half are too new to challenge me. As for Robert, he's still delegating the financial details." Adam kept his head down, invisible in his janitor's uniform. "Moving $10 million through shell companies might raise flags," Bennett persisted. "Especially with the upcoming audit." Carson's laugh was chilling. "That's why we need you to delay that audit another quarter. By then, we'll have control of enough shares to force a vote of no confidence. Robert's leadership style is outdated, the board knows it, even if they're too loyal to admit it." Adam's heart hammered in his chest. Carson wasn't just embezzling funds, he was orchestrating a full takeover. Bennett lowered his voice. "And what about the Sullivan heir? Robert might be distracted, but his son isn't stupid." "Adam?" Carson scoffed. "He's never shown interest in the actual business. Too busy enjoying his trust fund. Besides, Robert keeps him at arm's length, won't even let him attend board meetings." The men noticed Adam then. Carson frowned. "Are you finished here?" "Almost done, sir," Adam mumbled, averting his eyes. "Well, hurry up," Carson snapped before leading Bennett out. Once they left, Adam sank into a chair, mind racing. He needed proof, undeniable evidence to show his father. For the next week, Adam volunteered for overtime shifts, focusing on the executive floor. During late nights, he methodically photographed documents, recorded conversations, and tracked patterns in Carson's activities. The picture becoming clearer was deeply troubling. Through the Sullivan Microprocessing acquisition, Carson had created a way to funnel company funds into several offshore accounts. The money was being laundered through fake consulting firms before disappearing entirely. But what was it being used for? The answer came when Adam was cleaning Carson's office and spotted a private investment portfolio left open on the computer screen. Carson had stepped out for a meeting, giving Adam precious minutes to examine the document. What he saw made his blood run cold. Carson was using the stolen funds to quietly purchase Sullivan Enterprises stock through various proxies. He'd already accumulated nearly 15%, not enough for control, but combined with the board members he manipulated, it could tip the balance. Adam was taking photos when he heard footsteps. He barely had time to close the screen and grab his mop before Carson returned with Robert Sullivan beside him. "Just concerned about the direction we're taking," Robert was saying. "Trust me, Robert," Carson replied smoothly. "This restructuring is necessary for long-term growth. The board agrees with me. The board seems to agree with everything you proposed lately," Robert noted with a hint of suspicion. Carson's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Because they recognize good business strategy when they see it. Your father built this company with intuition, but today's market requires analytics." The subtle dig wasn't lost on Robert, whose expression hardened. "My father understood people, Victor. No algorithm can replace that." Adam continued mopping, inching closer to hear better. "Speaking of people," Carson said, changing tactics, "several board members have expressed concerns about leadership succession. Perhaps it's time to consider bringing Adam into a more significant role." Adam nearly dropped his mop. Coming from Carson, this suggestion was clearly a trap. Robert sighed. "Adam isn't ready. He understands business theory but not practice. I won't hand him responsibility just because of his last name." "Wise decision," Carson agreed too quickly. "Nepotism never looks good to shareholders." After they left, Adam leaned against the wall, conflicted emotions churning. His father's assessment stung, but he'd also glimpsed something he hadn't expected. Carson was getting bolder, testing his influence over Robert. And Robert wasn't entirely blind to it. The next day, Adam witnessed Carson's most brazen move yet. During an emergency financial committee meeting, Carson presented doctored reports showing serious cash flow problems. "The Sullivan Microprocessing acquisition has revealed deeper issues than anticipated," Carson announced gravely. "We need to implement austerity measures immediately and consider selling our European division." Adam, cleaning nearby, nearly gasped aloud. The European division was the company's most innovative branch. Selling it would cripple their future growth while generating massive liquid capital that Carson could potentially divert. One board member, Diane Chin, raised objections, requesting more detailed analysis. Adam noticed Carson's barely concealed annoyance. Later that evening, Adam overheard Carson on the phone. "We need Chin removed from the financial committee immediately. Replace her with Henderson." "Yes, I have the leverage to make it happen." As the days passed, Adam gathered more evidence, feeling increasingly desperate. Carson was systematically isolating his father from allies while consolidating power. Board members who questioned Carson suddenly found themselves reassigned or pushed out. Adam needed to move quickly. His father's company, his family's legacy, was being stolen right before his eyes. Adam knew he needed allies. Working as a janitor had taught him that the most overlooked people often had the most valuable insights. But to truly understand the financial labyrinth Carson had created, he needed someone with insider knowledge. His opportunity came during a late shift when he noticed a light still on in one of the accounting department offices. Inside, a young woman with dark-rimmed glasses sat surrounded by spreadsheets, her fingers flying over a calculator. Adam recognized her, Olivia Mercer, a junior accountant who joined the company just after his father had sidelined him. Adam knocked softly on the doorframe. Sorry to interrupt. Need to clean in here? Olivia looked up, clearly exhausted. Oh, don't worry about it. I'll be here a while. She gestured to the mountain of reports. Month-end reconciliation nightmare. Adam nodded sympathetically. Burning the midnight oil a lot these days. Ever since the Sullivan microprocessing acquisition. She sighed, rubbing her temples. Nothing adds up anymore, literally. Adam hesitated, then took a calculated risk. I keep hearing about that deal. Bad investment? Olivia glanced at the door, then lowered her voice. Between us? It's a disaster. But questioning it is apparently career suicide. She eyed him curiously. You're new, right? Jake? Started a few weeks ago. Adam confirmed, leaning on his mop. It's just... I used to work at an accounting firm before. He let his voice trail off, implying a fall from better circumstances. Olivia's expression softened. Life happens. No judgment here. She suddenly seemed to make a decision. Actually, since you have a background, maybe you can see something I'm missing. Over the next week, Adam spent his breaks with Olivia, carefully building trust. She was brilliant but overlooked, passed over for promotion twice despite her exceptional work. Under Carson's leadership, the company's meritocracy had eroded into a system of favorites and yes men. I've found millions that can't be accounted for. Olivia confessed one evening, showing Adam a spreadsheet she'd been working on privately. The official books claimed the money went to integration costs for Sullivan microprocessing, but when I requested specific invoices, I was shut down. Carson's office took over the file directly. Why not report it? Adam asked, already knowing the answer. Olivia laughed bitterly. To whom? Finance reports to Carson. HR reports to Carson. The board trusts Carson more than they trust themselves these days. She lowered her voice. Lisa from tax compliance raised concerns last month. She was let go the next week, corporate restructuring. The next night, Adam made his boldest move yet. Using the master key card he'd copied from the janitorial supervisor, he accessed Carson's office at 2 a.m. when the building's security systems reset briefly during their automated backup. He had exactly 7 minutes. Carson's computer required a password, but Adam had been preparing for this moment. He'd observed Carson typing it numerous times while pretending to clean nearby, Kingmaker 2023. The arrogance was almost too perfect. Once inside, Adam navigated quickly to the encrypted folders he'd spotted previously. Carson was organized, methodical in his corruption. Adam inserted a specialized USB drive that bypassed the company's data loss prevention tools and began copying files. What he found confirmed his worst fears. Carson had created an intricate web of fake consulting companies, Alta Innovations, Meridian Solutions, Zenith Technologies, all registered in different countries with elaborate paper trails. Each had received millions from Sullivan Enterprises for services that were never performed. The money then moved through a series of offshore accounts before landing in private investment funds controlled by Carson himself. And the purpose of those funds became clear. They were being used to secretly acquire Sullivan Enterprises stock through various proxies and shell companies. Carson wasn't just stealing money, he was stealing the entire company. A spreadsheet titled Board Strategy revealed Carson's complete plan. He had compiled compromising information on every board member, using it to pressure them into supporting his initiatives. Those who couldn't be controlled were being systematically replaced with his allies. The document included a timeline. In just 4 weeks, Carson planned to call a special board meeting to vote on Robert Sullivan's retirement due to health concerns. With the proxies and board votes Carson had accumulated, he would replace Robert as CEO. Adam's father was about to lose everything he had built, and he didn't even know it. As Adam continued searching, he discovered something even more disturbing: encrypted communications between Carson and Westlake Capital, Sullivan Enterprises' main competitor. Carson was not planning to run the company himself for long. Once in control, He intended to orchestrate a merger that would earn him hundreds of millions while dismantling much of what made Sullivan Enterprises successful. The security system would reset soon. Adam quickly finished copying the files and prepared to leave when a final document caught his eye, a dossier about himself. Carson had been tracking Adam's movements for months, documenting his frustrated attempts to gain his father's approval. The file assessed Adam as no threat due to his estrangement from company operations and Robert's refusal to involve him. A bitter laugh escaped Adam's lips. For once, his father's stubbornness had worked in his favor. The next day, Adam approached Olivia with carefully selected evidence from his findings. He needed her expertise to decrypt some of the more complex financial trails. "Where did you get this?" she gasped, looking at the documents. "Better you don't know," Adam replied. "The question is, can you help me track exactly where the money went and how much stock Carson controls?" Olivia studied him, clearly weighing her options. "This could cost me my job. Maybe worse. It already cost someone their company," Adam said gravely. "Someone who built it from nothing." After a long pause, Olivia nodded. "I've been tracking the discrepancies for months. With this information, I can complete the puzzle." She looked up at him with newfound determination. "But Jake, if we do this, we need irrefutable proof. Carson has powerful friends and a lot to lose. He won't go down without a fight." "I'm counting on it," Adam said quietly. For the first time since starting this mission, he felt a flicker of hope. With Olivia's help, he could finally expose Carson's schemes before it was too late. What had begun as a son's quest to prove himself to his father had become a race to save his father's legacy, and perhaps the one chance to heal the rift between them. Over the next week, Adam and Olivia worked relentlessly to compile the evidence against Carson. They met in the emptied break room after hours, in the parking garage before dawn, and once even at a coffee shop 6 blocks away to avoid suspicion. Olivia's financial expertise proved invaluable as she connected the dots between the shell companies and offshore accounts. "It's brilliant in a twisted way," Olivia admitted as she showed Adam her completed analysis. "Carson created a perfect circle of transactions that's almost impossible to trace unless you know exactly what you're looking for. But now we have it all documented," Adam said, reviewing their evidence. "Financial records, transfer confirmations, stock purchases through proxies. We just need something undeniable, something that proves intent." "Like a confession?" Olivia raised an eyebrow skeptically. "Good luck with that. Carson is too careful to admit anything on paper." Adam tapped his fingers thoughtfully on the table. "Not on paper, maybe. But what if we could record him?" Their opportunity came sooner than expected. Carson had scheduled a private dinner with Walter Griffin, the board member who'd recently replaced Diane Chin on the financial committee. Griffin had been reluctant to support Carson initially, but something had changed his mind. Adam suspected leverage was involved. "They're meeting at Costello's tomorrow night," Adam told Olivia, having overheard Carson's assistant confirming the reservation. "Private dining room. And how exactly do you plan to record their conversation?" Olivia asked. "Dress up as a waiter this time?" Adam grinned. "Better. My cousin owns the restaurant. He owes me a favor." 24 hours later, Adam sat in his apartment listening live to Carson's dinner conversation through a small bug his cousin had helped place in the private dining room. For the first hour, the discussion remained frustratingly vague: market conditions, growth projections, competitor analysis. "This is useless," Olivia whispered, sitting beside him. "They're not going to." "Ship," Adam interrupted as the conversation shifted. "Let's cut to the chase, Walter." Carson's voice came through clearly. "In 4 weeks, we're calling for a vote of no confidence in Robert Sullivan. I need to confirm you're with us." Griffin sounded nervous. "Victor, I respect Robert. He built this company. And now he's destroying it with sentiment and outdated thinking." Carson cut in smoothly. "You've seen the numbers. Sullivan Enterprises needs new leadership to remain competitive. And you believe you're that leader?" Carson's laugh sent chills down Adam's spine. By this time next month, I'll be CEO. The stock we've acquired through our various channels, combined with the proxies we control, gives us the votes we need. Robert won't know what hit him until it's too late. And my position in all this? Griffin asked cautiously. You'll be appointed Chief Operating Officer, with a very generous compensation package. Your gambling debts will no longer be a concern. Adam and Olivia exchanged stunned glances. There it was, the smoking gun they needed. Clear evidence of both the takeover plan and the blackmail Carson was using to secure votes. We've got him, Olivia whispered excitedly. Adam nodded, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders. Tomorrow I'll reveal everything to my father. Carson's finished. But fate had other plans. The next morning, Adam arrived early at Sullivan Enterprises, prepared to complete his janitorial shift as usual before finding a private moment to speak with his father. As he entered the employee locker room, he immediately sensed something was wrong. His locker was open, its contents scattered. There he is, came a harsh voice behind him. Adam turned to find two security guards and Victor Carson himself standing in the doorway. Jake Dawson, Carson said with a cold smile. Or should I say, Adam Sullivan? Adam's blood ran cold. How had Carson discovered his identity? I don't know what you're talking about. Adam attempted, but Carson held up a hand. Save it. Did you really think we wouldn't run background checks on new employees? Your little disguise might fool the janitors, but facial recognition software doesn't lie. Carson's smile widened. Though I must admit, it took me longer to connect the dots than it should have. Congratulations on that. The security guards moved forward, grabbing Adam's arms. You're making a mistake, Adam said firmly. I have evidence of your embezzlement, your stock manipulation, everything. Evidence? Carson laughed. You mean the corporate files you illegally accessed and copied? The private conversations you recorded without consent? That's not evidence, Adam. That's corporate espionage and wiretapping, both federal crimes. With a sinking feeling, Adam realized the trap he'd walked into. By gathering evidence illegally, he'd handed Carson the perfect weapon. Your father is waiting in the conference room. Carson continued smoothly. He's quite eager to hear why his son has been masquerading as a janitor and stealing company secrets. The walk to the conference room was the longest of Adam's life. Inside, Robert Sullivan stood by the window, his back to the door. He turned as they entered, his face a mask of disappointment and anger. Dad, I can explain, Adam began. Explain what? Robert cut him off. How you infiltrated my company under false pretenses? How you stole confidential documents? Victor showed me everything, including the thumb drive full of proprietary information they found in your locker. Adam's mind raced. That information proves Carson has been embezzling millions and planning to take over the company. Robert's expression didn't change. Victor warned me you might try something like this. He showed me your recent stock trades. You've been shorting Sullivan Enterprises shares for months. What? That's absurd. I would never. I have the records, Adam, Robert said coldly. Along with emails between you and Westlake Capital discussing mutual opportunities. Adam stared in shock, suddenly understanding. Those are forgeries. Carson created them to frame me. Why should I believe you? Robert asked, the hurt evident in his voice. You've been lying to me for weeks. Living a double life. Because I'm your son, Adam pleaded. Carson is manipulating you, just like he's manipulating the board. He's stealing the company right out from under you. For a brief moment, doubt flickered across Robert's face. But Carson stepped forward smoothly. Robert, he's desperate. You know how Adam has always resented your refusal to give him control. This is just another attempt to force his way in, by discrediting those you trust. Robert's expression hardened again. I want you out of this building, Adam. And don't come back. My lawyers will contact you about the potential criminal charges. Dad, please. Security will escort you out, Robert said firmly, turning away. As the guards led Adam toward the elevator, he caught sight of Olivia watching from her office, her face pale with shock. He gave her an imperceptible shake of his head, warning her to stay quiet and not reveal her involvement. Carson followed them to the lobby, his voice low so only Adam could hear. "You should have stayed in your penthouse, playing with your trust fund. Now you've lost even that. Your father is already talking about changing his will." As Adam was marched through the front doors, the first time he'd used them since beginning his undercover mission, he realized with bitter irony that he'd finally achieved what he'd set out to do. He now understood the company from the ground up. Unfortunately, he'd also lost everything in the process. The rain pounded against the windows of Adam's small apartment as he paced back and forth, the events of the day replaying in his mind. His father's face, that mixture of disappointment and betrayal, was seared into his memory. Everything had gone catastrophically wrong. A soft knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. Adam tensed, wondering if Carson had sent someone to deliver more bad news. He peered through the peephole to find Olivia standing in the hallway, soaking wet and looking nervously over her shoulder. "I wasn't followed," she said quickly as he let her in. "At least I don't think so. I took 3 different cabs and doubled back twice." "You shouldn't have come," Adam said, though relief flooded through him at the sight of an ally. "Carson will be watching you now." "I had no choice," Olivia replied, pulling a flash drive from her pocket. "After they escorted you out, I went straight to my office and downloaded everything we had. Then I deleted all traces from my computer. But that's not all." Her eyes gleamed with determination. "I found something new." She connected the drive to Adam's laptop and pulled up a series of financial records. "Remember how we couldn't figure out where the first transfers began? I traced them to their source. Carson didn't just start stealing recently. He's been siphoning funds for years, since right after your mother died." Adam leaned closer, studying the documents. "That's when my father made him CFO. And when your father was most vulnerable," Olivia added softly. "Carson exploited that grief. But here's the crucial part, he made a mistake early on. One of the shell companies he used initially was registered using his brother-in-law's address. I found the incorporation papers." Adam's mind raced with possibilities. "This connects Carson directly to the fraud. But it won't be enough on its own, not with him controlling the narrative and my father believing I'm the traitor. Which is why we need to go public," came a new voice. Adam spun around to find Elena Vega standing in his doorway, which Olivia had left ajar. Elena was the most respected investigative journalist in the city, known for exposing corporate corruption. "Your door was open," Elena explained, stepping inside. "And Olivia here contacted me this afternoon with quite the story." Adam shot Olivia a questioning look. "We need help," Olivia said firmly. "Someone with credibility who Carson can't silence. Elena's been investigating corporate fraud at several major companies. Sullivan Enterprises wasn't on her radar yet, but it certainly is now," Elena finished, her expression serious. "If what Olivia shared with me is true, this is exactly the kind of story that needs to be told. But I'll need proof, irrefutable evidence that will stand up to scrutiny." "We have the recordings," Adam said. "Carson's dinner with Griffin, where he explicitly outlines the takeover plan. And the financial trail I've documented," Olivia added. "Plus the original documents Adam copied from Carson's computer." Elena nodded thoughtfully. "It's a start. But Carson will claim the recordings were obtained illegally, which they were, and that the documents were fabricated. We need something more, something public." Adam paced the room, then stopped suddenly. "The emergency board meeting. Carson scheduled it for tomorrow morning to officially remove my father as CEO. What if we confronted him there? In front of the entire board and my father? That's incredibly risky," Elena cautioned. "Carson would have security remove you immediately." "Not if we have leverage," Adam countered. He turned to his laptop and pulled up a file he hadn't shown Olivia yet, the communications between Carson and Westlake Capital. "Carson isn't just planning to take over the company. He's planning to sell it off in pieces to our biggest competitor. Several board members stand to lose millions in such a deal. If we can get this information to them before the meeting. Throughout the night, the three worked feverishly, compiling evidence and crafting their strategy. Elena used her contacts to confirm the authenticity of key documents, while Olivia created a comprehensive presentation of the financial fraud. Adam recorded a video statement, explaining his undercover mission and what he'd discovered. By dawn, they had their plan. The Sullivan Enterprises boardroom buzzed with tension the next morning. Board members whispered among themselves, aware that something momentous was about to happen. Robert Sullivan sat at the head of the table, his face grim but composed. Carson stood nearby, reviewing notes with his lawyers. The doors swung open, and Adam walked in, flanked by Olivia and Elena. A murmur of surprise rippled through the room. "Security!" Carson barked immediately. "Remove these people!" "Before you do that," Elena called out clearly, "you might want to check your phones. Each of you has just received an email with documented evidence of extensive fraud and conspiracy within Sullivan Enterprises." The board members reached for their devices, expressions changing from confusion to shock as they scanned the attachments. "This is absurd," Carson sputtered. "These are fabricated documents. Robert, this is your son's desperate attempt to..." "To what, Carson?" Adam interrupted. "To expose how you've been stealing from this company for years? How you've been blackmailing board members? How you're planning to sell Sullivan Enterprises piece by piece to Westlake Capital?" The board erupted in questions and exclamations. Robert Sullivan stood slowly, his eyes moving from the evidence on his tablet to his son's face. "I have the recorded conversation where you told Walter Griffin about your plans," Adam continued, addressing Carson directly. "Where you bragged about taking control within a month." Carson's face flushed with anger. "You're bluffing. Those recordings would be inadmissible." "In court, perhaps," Elena interjected. "But the court of public opinion operates differently. My publication is preparing to release a comprehensive exposé at noon today unless the board takes immediate action." Carson's eyes darted around the room, calculating his options. Then, with surprising speed, he lunged toward Robert's computer and inserted a flash drive. "If I'm going down, I'm taking everything with me," he snarled, fingers flying over the keyboard. "I've just initiated a deletion protocol for all the company's financial records and proprietary designs." Panic erupted as board members realized what was happening. Security officers rushed forward, but Carson had locked the system with an encryption key. "Only I can stop it now," he said with a cold smile. "Unless you want to lose decades of research and development, you'll let me walk out of here." What Carson didn't know was that Olivia had anticipated this move. The moment he inserted the drive, she had activated a countermeasure they prepared overnight, an emergency system isolation protocol that cut off the affected servers. "Your deletion program just hit a wall," Olivia announced, her laptop displaying the isolation confirmation. "The servers are safe. And you've just committed attempted data destruction in front of 15 witnesses." Carson's face went from triumphant to stunned in an instant. 2 security officers seized him as he lunged for the door. "Robert," Carson pleaded desperately. "You know me. We've been friends for years. You can't possibly believe." "Play the recording," Robert Sullivan said quietly, looking at his son. "I want to hear it all." As Carson's own voice filled the room, detailing his betrayal and his plans to seize control of Sullivan Enterprises, the last of Robert's doubts faded. His eyes locked with Adam's across the table, pride replacing disappointment, gratitude replacing anger. By noon, Victor Carson was in police custody, charged with fraud, embezzlement, and corporate theft. The emergency board meeting had transformed into a crisis management session, with board members scrambling to address the damage Carson had caused. And for the first time in years, Robert Sullivan truly saw his son, not as the privileged heir seeking an easy path, but as the man who had risked everything to save what his father had built. 3 weeks after Carson's arrest, the Sullivan Enterprises headquarters still buzzed with aftershocks. Employees gathered around break room televisions watching Carson's perp walk replayed on financial news networks. The scandal had rocked the business world, with investigative teams now examining several other corporations for similar schemes. Adam stood in the elevator, this time wearing a tailored suit instead of a janitor's uniform. The past weeks had been a whirlwind of legal depositions, emergency board meetings, and long overdue conversations with his father. As the elevator ascended to the executive floor, Adam reflected on how drastically his life had changed. The doors opened to reveal Gloria, now head of the maintenance department following a company-wide review that rewarded loyal employees who had been overlooked during Carson's tenure. "Mr. Sullivan," she greeted him with a knowing smile. "Still feels strange seeing you in a suit." "Feels strange wearing one again," Adam admitted. "But please, it's still just Adam to you. Your father's waiting in the boardroom," Gloria informed him. "Everyone's already there." Adam nodded, suddenly nervous. Today marked the first full board meeting since Carson's removal, and his father had been mysterious about the agenda. As Adam entered the boardroom, conversations hushed. Robert Sullivan stood at the head of the table, looking more energized than he had in years. The burden of betrayal had been heavy, but the truth had ultimately rejuvenated him. "Please sit, Adam," Robert said, gesturing to an empty chair beside him, a seat that had never been offered before. Once everyone was settled, Robert cleared his throat. "First item of business, Victor Carson. The legal team informs me he's agreed to a plea deal. He'll serve at least 15 years for fraud and embezzlement. More importantly, all diverted funds have been located and are being returned to the company." Approving murmurs circulated around the table. "Next," Robert continued, "I want to recognize the individuals who uncovered this conspiracy." He nodded toward Olivia, who now sat at the table as the newly appointed Director of Financial Compliance. "Ms. Mercer's vigilance and courage were instrumental in preserving this company's future." Olivia blushed as the board members applauded. "And of course," Robert said, his voice softening as he turned to Adam, "my son, who went to extraordinary lengths to protect Sullivan Enterprises. Even when I refused to see the truth, even when I turned against him, he never stopped fighting for what was right." Adam swallowed hard, unprepared for the public acknowledgement. "Which brings me to the final item on today's agenda," Robert said, straightening his shoulders. "My retirement." Gasps of surprise filled the room. Despite Carson's removal, no one had expected Robert Sullivan to step down. He'd been the face and driving force of Sullivan Enterprises for decades. "This isn't a hasty decision," Robert assured them. "I've been considering it for some time. Carson's betrayal made me realize I've lost touch with certain aspects of this company. I failed to see what was happening right under my nose, partly because I've been clinging to control instead of embracing new perspectives." He paused, his eyes meeting Adam's. "I once told my son that business isn't just about fancy degrees. It's about understanding people, recognizing threats, building trust." Through his actions, he's demonstrated a profound grasp of these principles, far beyond what I gave him credit for. Robert lifted a folder from the table. "I'm hereby nominating Adam Sullivan as Chief Executive Officer of Sullivan Enterprises, effective immediately. The board will now vote on this appointment." Adam sat stunned as the board members, many of whom had been skeptical of him for years, voted unanimously to approve his appointment. His father had always been his harshest critic. Now, he was entrusting him with his life's work. After the meeting concluded and congratulations were exchanged, father and son found themselves alone in the boardroom. "I don't understand," Adam said finally. "After all these years of keeping me at arm's length." Robert's expression softened. "I kept you away because I wanted you to find your own path. I was wrong. What you did, going undercover, risking everything, no business school could teach that kind of commitment or integrity. I just wanted to prove myself to you," Adam admitted. "You did more than that," Robert replied. "You saved this company. You saw what I couldn't see. That's the mark of a true leader." The following days were a flurry of activity as Adam took the reins. His first official acts as CEO addressed the damage Carson had inflicted. He cancelled the Sullivan Microprocessing acquisition and initiated reviews of all executives Carson had promoted. Most meaningfully, he reinstated the employee bonus program and established a new profit-sharing plan for all staff levels. The janitors should benefit from company success just as much as the executives, he explained at the company-wide announcement. Every role matters. 1 month into his leadership, Adam stood in his father's, now his, office, looking out over the city. On a small table in the corner sat a framed janitor's uniform in a glass case, with a small plaque that read, "Where it all began." Olivia knocked on the open door. "The board approved all your proposed reforms," she reported. "And the stock price is up 12% since the announcement." "Good," Adam nodded. "And how's the task force investigating other companies with similar vulnerabilities?" "Making progress. Elena's reporting has created a movement for greater transparency across the industry." Adam smiled. "My father built this company on innovation, but its future will be built on integrity." As Olivia left, Adam's phone rang. It was Robert calling from his new retirement home. "How's it going, CO?" his father asked, the pride evident in his voice. "Challenges every day," Adam replied honestly. "But I'm ready for them." "I never doubted it," Robert said. "At least, not anymore." As the sun set over the city skyline, Adam Sullivan, once the overlooked heir, then the undercover janitor, now the visionary leader, felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. It was a weight he was finally prepared to carry.